Well, there the of each speaker.
Okay, so clearly you can hear there's more than one person speaking there. So how does the algorithm work? Well, I showed you before that the notes are in fact separate. So what we do in that musical representation that we do is I have my two microphones here and I have the number of speakers speaking. So my musical score comes in, and my notes are the red notes, for example, and it hits this microphone and this microphone. What's the difference between the notes on this microphone and this one? Well, I'm going to be louder here because I'm closer. And I'm going to be earlier here because I'm closer. And somebody over here is going to be louder here because they're closer to this one and earlier. And if Blaze is in the center there, he's going to be equal loudness on both microphones. That's the whole algorithm. Okay, that's the whole technique. So what we do is we label the notes based on their earliness, the relative earliness on the microphones, and the relative loudness. And it turns out that, of course, that these relative earlinesses and loudnesses should cluster around certain points. Those points correspond to the spatial signature in the room. Now, we've made lots of simplifying assumptions, but what we're going to show here now is we're going to go through these two mixtures, taking little short windows, constructing the musical scores, and then clustering the notes in relative delay space on the bottom and relative attenuation space along the top here. So as you go through, you see a number of different, clearly there's a bunch of different areas here that are active as it goes through, although it's hard to see. There'll be a summary histogram at the end. So at the end, oh my gosh, how many people are speaking in that mixture? There are 5, because there's 5 clusters. Each cluster corresponds to their spatial signature where they are in the room. If I take all the notes that gave me the same delay and attenuation that fell into that peak, those notes, and I label those notes red, and I just look at the red music and go back into the time domain, I'll just have the red person's speech. So I'm going to pick the peaks here. So there's the first one, second one, third one, fourth one. It's really important that I get these exactly right, of course. And now I'm demixing, and this is faster than real-time demixing. Actually, we have real-time versions of this that run as well. And now I'll play the individual speakers.
The problem reconstructing the original signal from a mixture of signals with no known parameters, with no detailed knowledge of different sources, is known as the blind source separation problem.
So the demixing isn't perfect. I've in fact bled some of the original mixtures back in to kind of smooth, and you see there's musical tones. Now we can clean that up with post-processing, and lots of people have come up with snazzy add-ons or even better algorithms than this that do that.
The blind source separation, which is University College Dublin, the largest university in Ireland, uses time, frequency methods, and advanced mathematics to separate signals.
The advanced mathematics is actually division and subtraction there. One question is, I've been using this musical analogy all the time. Does it in fact work for music? So this is significantly less canned because this is something just ripped straight from a CD. And then if I create the histogram here, you'll see there's some activity down here. There's definitely something up there, something there, something maybe there and there. There's actually 2 things there. Because I've given this talk a couple times, I know that there's 2 things down there. So I'm going to separate this out now. So there's 1, there's 2. I never get these quite right, 3 and 4. So I'm going to go for broke here and not put any leakage in, so you'll just hear the absolute raw separation here. So this is like the ultimate karaoke device, right? Now normally I play this on really crappy speakers and it sounds much better on bad audio, by the way. But we'll go play the next one here. This is the one that always shocks me, that you can actually get the drums out so nicely. Now there's leakage, of course, from the loud instrument, but that can be cleaned up by post-filtering, which I've been claiming for several years now and never actually attempted. So actually I thought what we do, so never ever trust anybody unless they do a live demo. It's always difficult because it's always difficult to get people to talk at the same time. People end up having a conversation, and it's really unimpressive to separate people who are actually having a conversation when they're already separated in time domain. So, okay, and go. Okay, that's good. Thank you. So, okay, let's see if this worked. Go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Digamos Plaza Correazas, que siempre es DF. Estamos hablando todos del mismo.
There's just no chance. Oh, sorry. So I'm generating the histogram already with the wrong parameters, so that's going to kind of, oh gosh, I can see perfectly actually. There's one there, I think, and one there, and one there. This actually might work. Which should be very gratifying.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Le llamo Plaza Correazas, que es en México DF. Estamos hablando todos al mismo tiempo y creo que...
Okay, so that's certainly another language.
Mary Hogan is Alan Dunn, Fáinne Goni, Báile Arclia, agus ag Ivor UCD Castle, and Báile Arclia, Tá San Down Oran, and I can show, you know, it's very difficult to speak Irish when there's Russian and English in it.
Okay, very nice. This also doesn't necessarily just work on audio and music. We also did tests on frequency op waveforms. This is that are used for communication and are used for sonar and radar, for example. So this is actually 10 sources, whereby speech actually has this thing, perhaps through evolution or coevolution or some types of things. Maybe our ears and speech evolved in this way so that we can actually localize multiple speakers. In fact, frequency op waveforms have this type of disjointness by design. That's why they're designed that way. So this type of technique is optimal for types of things like frequency op waveforms. So, oh, I forgot about the murder case. So it turns out that the woman, the recording wasn't stereo. They had 2 channels, but the 2 channels, after a thorough analysis in 30 seconds, turned out to be identical. It was just actually 2 microphones that were leading into 1 wire. So I'm sorry, 1 microphone that had 2 wires coming out of it. So we couldn't use the technique that we had developed. So what happened was that we asked them for the original recording of the Michael Bolton. Now you can't just play the Michael Bolton and subtract it out, because that means you'd have to actually listen to it as well, which is painful enough. But and in fact, if you do subtract it out, because of the room effects in this, that, or the other, you end up actually, you get constructive interference and destructive interference. You end up just basically kind of adding it back into itself. And it's very hard to estimate the channel because the channel's changing all the time. People are moving around. But what we did do is we created a second tool just specifically for this crime. Okay, so that's clearly a mixture of music and speech, right? And we can all hear the speech. Or maybe not, but there is speech in there. You have to trust me, and we're not going to pull that speech out. No, so what happens here, it's very easy. We look at the top one and the bottom one, and we look where there are peaks in the top one, where there aren't peaks in the bottom one. Now, there's just a few of them there, because the person doesn't say much. And then what we do is we basically let those peaks pass through, the unexplained peaks, and we kill the other ones. And this is a canned demo, but this is going to show you that, in fact, the sparseness of speech, or the sparseness of, in general, of lots of human-produced sounds, is really powerful because you only have to get a few points correct in order to reconstruct the entire speech. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look for those few tiny things there. So I have to roughly synchronize these things. And now I'm going to run the algorithm. And here's the speech that pulls out of it. Okay? That's actually the best I've ever seen. And
1, 2,
okay.
3.
So that speech was embedded in the mixture. You just couldn't hear it. I'll play the mixture again.
8, 9, 10.
Okay, and see if you can hear it this time. It's really, really, really down and whatever, but if you use simple techniques like this again, this is easy. This is just basically multiplying by 1s and 0s. It works alarmingly well. I'm conscious of the time, so I just thought I'd end with my take-home message that sparsity is good.